Good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you all for taking some time with Bitnami today to look at Stacksmith. We'll be getting started here. Today's webinar will be a live demonstration of the Stacksmith product, packaging, and application into multiple deployment formats, which we'll then deploy onto Azure and Kubernetes using AKS. We'll go through the background of Bitnami, as well as some key information about the Stacksmith product in some slides before we get started with that demo. There will be some opportunity for Q&A at the end, and we do encourage you to please post your questions in the Zoom webinar chat as we're going through, and we'll be sure to address them at the end of the presentation. First, we'll be introducing Bitnami as a company, who we are and where we come from, and how we look at the challenges around application packaging and deployment. Then we'll focus in on Stacksmith to provide an overview and some suggested use cases for the product. We'll be focusing in on the cloud migration use case, replatforming applications for different cloud providers. We'll talk about adopting the tool in your enterprise, how to fit it into your current DevOps maturity model, and either a completely automated or a very manual flow. And we'll be ending with some benefits. We'll then get to the live demo of packaging that Java application for infrastructure as a service and containers. At the end of the demonstration, you'll be invited to sign up for a Stacksmith free trial. Everybody in attendance today also has access to our white glove onboarding service, which will help you get your first application onboarded to Stacksmith for free. To start, I want to take you through Bitnami's vision. Our mission is to make software available to everyone everywhere. A simple mission, right? And our focus is to do that by making applications easy to package, deploy, and maintain. Now, we already do this across a few different product segments. Our application catalog business, in which we have our cloud providers, the cloud providers as our customers. This is where you might log into AWS or Azure or Google or Oracle's marketplace, search for a piece of technology like WordPress or MySQL cluster or RabbitMQ or Kafka. Chances are the first or second result that you're going to see says certified by Bitnami. What that means is Bitnami's packaged that application, we've tested it on that target cloud provider, and we've secured that image for underlying system package updates and vulnerabilities. Those assets are trusted, maintained, and optimized for that cloud provider target, meaning you have a trusted foundational starting point to test that new technology in that target. We've been doing this for the past 10 years, focused on providing very simple and easy to use applications and services for the various cloud providers. We also now offer a collection of containers and container services available on the various cloud marketplaces as well. Stacksmith is a new product from Bitnami, and it's a SaaS product to provide the same type of automation that we use to maintain all of these assets and images in this part of our business and putting that automation in your hands. So Stacksmith allows us to take the same concept of creating trusted packages, maintaining them over time, and optimizing them for different targets, and it allows you to package your own applications using our automation. It generates and maintains these applications in a cloud-native format, meaning if I'm packaging for AWS, I'm going to get an AMI and a CloudFormation template. If I'm packaging for Azure, I'm going to get a virtual machine image from Azure, as well as an ARM template. And if I'm packaging for Kubernetes, I'll get a Docker container and a Helm chart. This is essentially acting as an application transcoding service, allowing you to use cloud-native features, first-party services, in your design, in your application design, yet still maintain portability between those providers and technologies. We also focus a lot on Kubernetes here at Bitnami, and this is where you'll find the majority of our open source projects, and really defining the next generation of packaging and deployment tools. Today, you're going to see a little taste of this as we demonstrate a deployment using Helm, Bitnami is a core maintainer of Helm, which is the de facto standard package manager for Kubernetes. We also have interesting projects such as kubeapps, which is a service catalog for Helm charts, and kubeless, which allows you to run distributed function as a service across your Kubernetes clusters. Today, we're going to focus on Stacksmith and packaging and maintaining your own applications. Stacksmith is a SaaS tool for generating and maintaining machine images and automation. In one end of the process goes your application code and scripts to get your application running. Stacksmith's automation packages that and optimizes it for the targets that you've selected and generates the required VMs and an associated deployment template to get that application up and running. Again, those go into the cloud native formats for AWS, for Azure, for Kubernetes. And then over time, we help you maintain everything that gets packaged in at this time. That's all the system packages that end up in your images. That's the deployment template that's used to deploy those images and any associated PaaS services on those different providers. We help you maintain that through the use of Stacksmith's notification services. There are a few major Stacksmith use cases. The application delivery and maintenance framework. This is a great use case for central IT that needs to enforce and support how dev is onboarding applications to various cloud targets, enforcing how operating systems get hardened, enforcing standard practices and deployment architectures, dependencies on things like centralized logging and monitoring, so that operations can support those applications and ensure that they have the baseline configuration they need to successfully run in a target platform. The cloud migration use case will allow you to take existing brownfield applications and move them to a different target, either your data center to a cloud to another cloud, cloud to containers. This allows you to improve that application in the process by replatforming it to the native cloud type, native cloud image and template types required at the target. We'll be looking at that use case in more depth today. Golden image maintenance is also a major use case here, where a central information security team might have their standards for securing images and providing a baseline golden image to be used as part of a mutable deployment process, let's say with an existing Chef or Puppet infrastructure. And it allows that team to tighten the security cycle there. So they can update those golden images as needed as they're affected by application package updates or security vulnerabilities, CVEs. Stacksmith also helps you maintain internal cloud service catalogs, just like we are helping maintain the Azure and Amazon and Oracle cloud service catalogs. As you're maintaining your own internal catalogs, the most critical thing that you can do to help your organization succeed with developer self-service is to ensure that that's populated with known good configurations that work out of the box, as well as preserved over time with the latest updates. And Stacksmith can help you front end, help you create the assets that you can then front end with one of those cloud service catalogs. As we're focused in on the cloud migration use case, Stacksmith really promotes the concept of application replatforming. This is going further than a rehost or a lift and shift, where you might just launch a VM in a target cloud, SCP everything over, image it, and call it a day. That will get you up and running in a target cloud platform, but it's not really using any best fit services. I've heard one cloud provider characterize it as, well, it sucks over here and it sucks over there. Really, in order to take advantage of the cloud, you're going to want to take advantage of cloud best fit services and capabilities and optimize your application for the target. But in some cases, you may not have the time or money to completely re-architect an application either. Break an existing monolith down and into microservices, for example, and completely rewrite the application as cloud native. So Stacksmith focuses on this concept of replatforming, which is the DevOps middle way. And it allows you to package and optimize the existing application with no code changes to the target by changing the underlying infrastructure that application is going to be deployed to. So for example, if I'm replatforming an application to AWS, I might want to use the best fit services in AWS. For example, their relational database service, or even newer, their Aurora DB service, their managed database. I might want to add in cloud native monitoring, such as CloudWatch, or logging, such as CloudTrail. And I may want to take advantage of cloud native features like autoscaling. So Stacksmith can factor in those changes to the infrastructure to support that application. Similarly, in Azure, where we'll focus today's live demonstration, I have different services that I may want to adopt. Basically, if you can configure a service with an automation template, an ARM template in Azure, or a CloudFormation template in Amazon, you can incorporate that into your application replatforming design in Stacksmith. As you're looking at how this fits into your enterprise, Stacksmith wants to meet you where you are in your DevOps maturity model. Whether you're just starting out and everything is very manual, but you want to help improve some key principles like image immutability, developer self-service for onboarding an application, we have a manual process that you can go through. I'm going to be showcasing that manual process today, where we'll use the Stacksmith UI to upload our application. Stacksmith will package it, and then we'll take the resulting CloudFormation template and deploy it manually in Azure Portal. Stacksmith also provides a UI for the maintenance process, helping you understand what packages are out of date and the impact of repackaging your application to update those system packages. If you have more automation in your pipeline, we can also help integrate with that. So for example, the code doesn't necessarily have to be uploaded from our UI. We can pull it directly from your continuous integration tool, or from assets from a trusted artifact repository, such as Artifactory. For example, the build scripts that you're using to configure your application, you may put those first in Artifactory and have Stacksmith pull those directly. Similarly, Stacksmith can push the package to your trusted asset repository, ensuring that you have a chain of trust between the assets that went in from development and the resulting package that you will deploy on the cloud provider through your operations team. You can ensure trust on both sides of that equation. You can integrate this downstream with your orchestration or continuous deployment tools. That deployment tool would simply wrap around the package that Stacksmith creates, the CloudFormation template or the ARM template or the Helm chart, to deploy that asset. And you can even continuously package with Stacksmith. As updates are available for your images, if you have some automation downstream to deploy and test those updates, you can have Stacksmith kick off a continuous packaging process, which would then feed your downstream deployment tool and test with your test harness. I also want to underscore the fact that if you don't have all of these things in place, you can also pick and choose. As you innovate with CI, but you're not yet at CD, you can of course fit Stacksmith in to feed the process with your, from your CI tool, and then manually deploy it down the line. So wherever you are in your process, whatever types of existing automation scripts you may have, be those shell scripts or chef recipes or anything else, bring that with you to Stacksmith, and we'll take advantage of the investments that you've already made, as well as help you down the path to further mature your process. So why use Stacksmith? To recap, Stacksmith is not just a piece of the puzzle. This is automation for the complete packaging and maintenance process. It creates trust in the asset and for the assets and artifacts that's at the center of this dev, security, and operations handoff. Development trusts the assets that they're creating through their CI and build tools. Security trusts their process for hardening images and installing all the various components that they need to ensure security, such as IDS systems, or configuring SE Linux in a particular way. And operations defines their best practices for actually running the application in the target. So the packaging process is really that handshake between those teams where everybody can look into that package and know exactly what is running and who's running it and how it's running. We optimize for the target, so using best fit Azure or other cloud first-party services, including infrastructure as a service components, platform as a service components, or even native container services. And of course, we help you complete this with a continuous monitoring and simplified repackaging process for maintaining those applications long-term. We do all of this without locking you into Stacksmith, since what we're generating are cloud native templates, images. There is no dependency on Stacksmith to actually launch or maintain them. The onus is on us to keep you happy, especially at the ongoing maintenance of these applications, to keep you as a Stacksmith customer. We do have out-of-the-box support today for Azure and AWS. We support Docker and Kubernetes infrastructure, including cloud vendor Kubernetes services. We'll be showcasing AKS today. We support the Linux operating system. Windows is not supported today, though we'd love your feedback if you have a Windows use case and understanding more about your challenges with maintaining your Windows applications. And we do have some out-of-the-box reference architectures for Java Tomcat applications, Node.js, and .NET Core, as well as a generic application template that you can use to expand this to really any Linux application. At the bottom line, if you have enough knowledge to get your application running on Linux, then you have enough knowledge to package that and get that package that with Stacksmith and get that deployed in your cloud target or container platform. There is a question that I will quickly address here. AWS, Azure, and Kubernetes. Do we support Kubernetes in AWS and Azure? Yes, we do support EKS, as well as AKS, GKE, et cetera, et cetera. The target Kubernetes platform has to support Helm, because Helm is the template type for deploying a full application, and all of them do, since Helm is really the emerging de facto package manager. EKS is Elastic Kubernetes Service, which is Amazon's Kubernetes service. AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine. So let's get to the demo and show this off. You're now looking at the Stacksmith UI, having logged in, and I'm currently operating within this demo project. A project in Stacksmith can be delineated for a particular team. If you're a large enterprise with multiple teams that are going to be packaging applications, you can have multiple projects to package those applications in. I'm going to go through the process of packaging a new application. Then we're going to take a look at one of those that I've already packaged here in this account to show you some of those day two benefits around maintenance of the application. And then we'll get into deploying the applications themselves. So the first step that I'll do if I'm packaging a new application in Stacksmith, I'll hit package the application. And at this point, I'm going to put my application owner hat on, because as the application owner, I have what's required to input into Stacksmith for these next steps. So I'll give this a name here. So we'll call it Live Demo 20 for June 20th. We'll give it an application version. Again, as the application owner, I care about this, and I want to maintain this over time. If this is my own custom application, I'll want to track my own version of this application as I'm packaging it. If this is a commercial off-the-shelf piece of software, like Jasper Report Server or Perforce or Artifactory or Vault or something like that, then I may want to tune this application version to that particular version of the commercial off-the-shelf piece of software. So in this case, I'll give it a 1.1 version number. The stack template is where operations is contributing their best practices to this equation. The stack template defines the steps required to take the unmodified code and platform that to a particular target. Here you can see some of our out-of-the-box stack templates to allow you to quickly package these existing application types. I'm going to use this Java application stack template with a MySQL database. You can select an operating system or even provide a golden image here at the operating system level. As I did mention previously, we do support the ability for you to also maintain your golden images with Stacksmith and seed them into the equation. You could also practice a concept of making every image golden, ensuring that the stack template defines your security team's hardening process to ensure that every image that's created through this process follows that particular hardening process, no matter when it was actually created. We'll go ahead and keep CentOS 7 here. At this point, I can select one or more targets. I'm going to select Azure and Kubernetes. This is actually going to create my Azure VM images as well as an ARM template. The database is going to run on a managed database in Azure. With Kubernetes, it's going to create Docker images. And for the MySQL database, we're going to pull a public MySQL image and generate the Helm chart to coordinate all of that with our application image and make sure that it's all connected when we do the Helm install. You can see we're also teasing VMware OVA support here to help you with your internal image maintenance as well. At this point, again, as the application owner, I have some stuff to feed into the process here. So I'm going to select my application files. Here I'm going to use this WAR file. This is a Spring Boot application. I can here, which would be any additional application dependencies, system packages that need to be pulled in to help my application run. As the application owner, I know and I care about those dependencies and I want to maintain those dependencies over time. In this case, I don't have any additional dependencies for this app, so I can leave that one blank. But I do need to provide the logic to get it booted. So when those instances and containers come up, what logic do I need to actually get this application booted up? You can see here I'm just adding a shell script. There's nothing fancy about this shell script. And if you do have other automation types, such as a chef recipe that does this process or an Ansible playbook or anything like that, we can also leverage that existing automation that you have. So bring to us your existing automation and we'll figure out how to work that into this process. Now that my assets are uploaded, I'm ready to create. One thing I want to underscore is that when I uploaded these application assets, they did not go to Bitnami servers. They actually went directly to my cloud account. In this case, my Azure subscription that I'm going to use to securely package this application. So this customer app is now stored in Azure Blob, as is this boot script, and it's going to package this application entirely within my Azure account securely. Stacksmith as a SaaS tool is simply pulling the strings and telling Azure what to do and how to run in order to complete this process. So at this point, I've hit create. And you can already see that the logs have kicked in here. Stacksmith live logs this packaging process so you can see exactly what's going on. In the case of a failure, you can also see how it failed. We also persist these logs so you can go back in time and take a look at how previous applications were packaged and built. One thing you may see here is that we're actually using Azure's brand new Docker Builder service in the Azure Container Registry. So this is an example of even where we're creating assets that are agnostic to the cloud, in this case Docker containers and a Kubernetes Helm chart. We're using the best fit cloud service to do that. So we're using Azure's native container build service. In AWS, we actually use AWS code build service to create the containers. When I pop over to our Azure Infrastructure as a Service build, you'll notice some different logs that are being created, and they have to do with Azure Resource Manager, ARM. In this case, we're actually coordinating the use of Packer to create these images. Packer is running server-side at Bitnami. We're creating the Packer file required and ensuring that entire process is automated and logged end to end. So in this log, you'll notice some infrastructure as a service specific activities happening when you go and you take a look. In the interest of time and allowing this to package, ARM will take about 15 to 20 minutes. Kubernetes takes about 12 to 15 here. So we'll come back and revisit those in a little bit here. And we'll let those continue packaging. And here I'll highlight an application that had been previously packaged. So here you can see both the completed logs. Here's everything that actually happened to create this build end to end. I can see system packages that have been installed. I also have a nice system package manifest that shows me every package that was created and in this case put into my container images. Or in this case, put into my Azure images. I have this manifest, which of course I can download and persist wherever I need to. The logs as well can be downloaded and persisted where you need to. I can also look at situations where I might have a failure case. Here in this case, we hit some issues with Azure unavailability. So we actually have a log to know exactly what happened in the process. And in this case, since it was a transient error, a simple repackage fixed the problem. So this really helps you get some really fine-grained detail of exactly what's happening in your environments during this process, as well as persisting that information over time. So you have the ability to refer back to it from your past builds. If I look far into the past, you'll also notice that I have previous builds with different application versions. I can use Stacksmith to maintain my application version as well as iterations of builds within that same application version over time. I simply do that by hitting Edit Configuration. I can update the application version and kick off a new repackaging process. In this case, I'll just use the same application files. In practice, I'd upload new application code here for my new application version. And as you can see, that's going to kick off 2 new simultaneous packaging processes with my version 2.5. If I zoom back in time here and take a look, here's the first package back in May. I can see what packages were out of date when I needed to repackage this application. Since it was repackaged yesterday, I know exactly what is going, that all these packages have been updated, but here you can really see how we're gathering this information and helping you make determinations of when and how to update your applications. A simple repackage will take the newest application packages and bundle them in to your new build. So you have the ability to both repackage, to update your system packages, as well as maintain your code version over time and repackage, also including the latest updates, and continue to maintain that over time. As we zoom back out, we have our packaging processes that are happening live right now. I'm going to show the deployment of an existing application package as we wait for these to finish here. And then we'll go back and we'll download our own. Actually, hey, good timing. Our Kubernetes package just finished building. So that was actually about 6 minutes to build 2 containers and generate the Helm chart required to deploy this. So now since it's ready, I'll get started on that one. I'll go ahead and download the Helm chart that we just created. This again is the manual process. You could also push these containers in the Helm chart to your trusted artifact repository. So I downloaded this locally, live demo 20 here. And what I'll do now is I'll pop over to the terminal. As you can see here, I'm showing my contexts here. I have multiple Kubernetes environments that I have access to. Two AKS environments, the Stacksmith demo cluster, as well as this AKS cluster here. I have one that's running in AWS that's just running on instances, not even EKS. I also have a Minikube cluster that I'm running locally. So this Helm chart that I've created in these Docker containers, I can use wherever. That's really a key benefit of using Kubernetes and Helm, is that I can take this and I'm immediately agnostic to the underlying provider, and I can use the best fit service and cloud provider that I want to take advantage of. So in this case, since I'm operating in the context I want to be operating in, this current AKS account, I'm simply going to do a Helm install. That went to my downloads folder. That was called live demo. There's my tarball that represents my Helm chart. The containers themselves are actually stored by default here in Azure Container Registry. So they're already securely stored up in Azure for me. And when I hit enter, Helm is going to give me a fun name for my application, Riotous Ladybird. And that's going to deploy two containers here. So we have our application container that contains our Spring Boot application, and we have a MySQL container that's being pulled from a public repository as the baseline for MySQL, and it's going to be factored in when this application is created. This process takes a couple minutes, so we'll let it complete its deploy here, and then we'll pop back and take a look at the application that was deployed. Popping back into our live demo, we can take a quick look at where ARM is. As you can see, it's still in the middle of installing its packages. Infrastructure as a service does take a bit longer. One of the value adds here, especially for Azure, is that we're taking the off-the-shelf OS image and we're also ensuring that it is fully updated when you deploy it. So in Azure, the image tends to get a bit stale as time wears on, and then Azure updates it and provides a new point-in-time reference that's an official OS image. With Stacksmith, you're ensuring that no matter where you're starting from, you're always ensuring that that application OS is going to be up to date. We'll let that continue to complete its process. One thing that I will highlight, actually, that's currently going on is that we are cleaning everything up, too, after this. This is really part of the full automation process, that we're generating transient assets. An instance is being launched that Packer's going to create a temporary SSH key and SSH into to actually install the application and then image that. But we don't want that instance hanging around. We don't want any SSH keys hanging around. So Stacksmith ensures that the artifacts that are created in this packaging process are also nicely cleaned up. So you end up with just your inputs as well as the package output. We'll let that thing continue to do it. It's currently going through its deprovisioning process. In the meantime, we can take a look at an ARM template that I created a bit earlier today. So, here's this, I packaged this right before the demo at 8:21 this morning, Pacific time. And I'll go ahead and I can download this ARM template, certainly, just like I did with that Helm chart. But I also have this handy button that will take me right to the Azure portal to launch it. This is really underscoring that there's nothing fancy here that we're doing with these templates. This is just a standard ARM template that's created. The images that were generated as part of this process are already stored in Azure Blob as well. And now at this point, I'm straight into my launch process in Azure Portal for this application. Now, all of these settings here, I do need to fill out, but all of these settings can be controlled in the stack template. I'm going to give this a new resource group name of live demo 20. I'm going to give it a stack name of live demo 20. If you do not want to provide people the ability to modify these things, you can certainly hard code them as part of your process or pare down the number of options that you're offering. So in this case, for example, as a deployment time choice, I can select any instance size that I want to from Azure. Maybe you don't want to offer the GS5 or G class in general for deployment options. You can, of course, curate these deployment time decisions as well. I'm going to leave it on a standard D1 V2. It's a cheap size that supports my application. I'm going to go ahead and supply some additional detail here. There's my SSH key to log in. I'm going to open this one up to the world. Same with my SSH connection. It's asking me for a database size. This again is using Azure's database service. So I can supply either a hard-coded value here or a range of values. I'll just leave this on Gen 5, the smallest size. I can configure the allotted storage. If I have value-add services for that database, as I do here with the Azure Database Service, I can also configure that here. One additional thing that we're asked for is this database password. The database password in this case is actually being set by my boot script that I uploaded to configure my application. I do need to supply one here and turn into this process. I do then need to accept Microsoft's terms, and I'm ready to purchase my deployment. At this point, Azure will send me into its standard launch process. Our deployment's in progress. We'll let that one tick along and we'll check in with that one right towards the end of the demonstration. I'm going to pop back over to the terminal window here. We'll check on our riotous ladybird. So the status will just tell me if my containers are running and ready. I can see now both of them are. I have some notes here that I'm just going to copy and paste to set up some port forwarding for my application here to show you the actual application itself. This is now going to forward on my local machine here. And we'll pop back to the browser. And we'll head over to 127 on port 8080 here. And here's our deployed application. This is a simple name list application. It does have a database. So hello live demo 20. And we can add that to the database. Everything's been fully configured. Of course, if I pop back here to the terminal window, I can see that we're handling this connection on port 8080. So my forwarding is working to my application. So that's an end-to-end deploy there using Kubernetes. Again, Helm install works for any of the Kubernetes services from the various cloud providers. Of course, you can also just use the Docker containers that Stacksmith is creating. So if you haven't yet adopted Kubernetes or haven't yet adopted Helm, you can still use Stacksmith to generate trusted containers. That will help you so as not to be shipping Docker files around from the local machine where bad or potentially virus-ridden containers that are developed locally may end up in production because you're shipping things through people's machines. Instead, you can start with a trusted and hardened asset. We'll pop back over here and take a look at our process in Azure here. So if we go to deployment in progress, we will see that some of our assets are now being deployed and created. I did do a pre-launch of this as well in the interest of time, where we took that ARM template and deployed it. And here I can show you how to get to the application. You can see exactly what was created. Azure Database for MySQL. We created the security groups. We created the virtual network and VNet for to get this all set up, deploy this, all the needed components. Of course, the topology of this application, which was defined by the stack template, you can elect different topologies. For example, you may want to have these applications deploy to existing networks versus creating new networks if you have an existing virtual network policy or virtual data center policy, or existing express routes or direct connects or anything else that you're using. So the stack template, again, it really just conformed that to operation standards and best practices when I went to deploy my ARM template. As we go to the deployment output here, we go to our template. I can see the template itself that Stacksmith generated. This is just an ARM template here. These are all the allowed options that you saw in that pick list. So again, you can see how those can be curated. There are also parameters and variables that were asked for, such as the database, database password details that were required. And again, those are configurable. If I go to the outputs here, this is where I can actually get to my application. So I'll copy this fully qualified domain name, insert it here. My app's running on 8080 in this case. And I have my same application. I've already done a hello world, but I can do a hi again. And there's my application. In the, if we do have the time to pop back towards the very end after the Q&A, we can certainly showcase the deployment that we're currently doing live. Before we get to Q&A, I'll just pop back to show our live demo application has now been fully packaged. I can go through the same process of launching it in Azure. It is the same type of deployment template output that we use here. So there you see an end-to-end process, essentially using Stacksmith as a transcoding service for my application to create two output types from the same inputs, this war file and this boot script. So take your existing applications and you can use them, you can run them through this process. What's also really nice is that because I have a stack template that is a helpful definition for my application type, any other Java Tomcat or Spring Boot applications that I have in my organization can run through that same stack template. So once you create the operations, creates these stack templates for different application types, you can standardize that application delivery and maintenance process for the organization, giving your development team some self-service to add assets in the front end, and giving your operations team trust in the fact that what comes out the other end is going to conform to their best practices. So with that, we've got about 15 minutes left. We are going to open it up for QA. Please, since we do have quite a few attendees here today, please do post any questions you have in the Zoom webinar chat. Michael Murphy from the Bitnami team will assist in reading those out and we'll answer those live.
Great, thanks, Matt. A number of questions have come in during the webinar, during the presentation and demo you just did. If you have additional questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll get to them before the webinar is over. Before I get to the first question, there was just a general question about the recording and if it will be available after the session. It will indeed be available. The recording, a link to the recording after it's rendered will get sent out to everybody who registered for the webinar today. It will also be posted on the Bitnami website. So you'll be able to reference back to the recording after the call today. We had a number of questions that came in. So one of them, what about OVA? In other words, does Stacksmith support packaging for OVAs? And a related question, does Stacksmith support packaging for private VMware cloud?
Yeah, great questions. OVA and VMware in general are on the roadmap, not yet supported today. We'd love to talk to you about your requirements, especially around the orchestration component. For example, using VRA blueprints versus something like Terraform or others. So we're in active requirements gathering phase right now on VMware, especially around template automation.
Thanks. Next question. Do you have a roadmap or ETA for Windows support? I work in the industrial automation industry where Windows is 90% of the market, looking to stack many of these software for easy deployment on edge, on-premises servers, or cloud.
Great question. Windows support is also on the roadmap. Unfortunately, I don't have a timeline for you right there. There are some preceding priorities that we anticipate delivering, such as OVA support, but it is something that we're actively looking into as well. We'd love to, again, to get some further feedback on your use cases. The concepts that we've presented today around generating those images and maintaining them over time, they do change a bit with the Windows world. And so we'd love your feedback on how you're dealing with some of these processes today and how you'd like to see incorporating those into Stacksmith in the future.
Next question. Since these applications are in Kubernetes, is it possible to do load balancing and replication for the application and SQL servers across multiple VMs?
Yes. You know, the answer is yes in all cases, even for infrastructure as a service. Kubernetes itself abstracts some of the load balancing requirements. But in any case, you can run any type of architecture with N tiers that you would like. So if your database tier is a multi-master or master-slave or master and multiple read slaves, and you need to configure replication policy across all of that, you can absolutely inject that best practice into your stack template so that you get consistency out the other end when you generate the deployment templates and images.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Next question, is there a non-SaaS offering that can be deployed either on-premises or within a disconnected VPC or VNet? If not, where is the compute undertaken and can this be defined? To give a little bit of context, I work for an organization with strict security requirements where data must be stored and processed in the UK.
Great question. One point before I go deep in answering that is that all of the packaging steps that we looked at today happen within the associated cloud account. So in your case, when you sign up for the free trial, you will be prompted to add your AWS or Azure account. And that is where the asset storage and the packaging process takes place. Stacksmith is reaching in to that account to pull the strings to make the appropriate API calls that are required. But all of the assets themselves, your intellectual property, will stay in your cloud. That does mean that Stacksmith can run within a VPC. However, it can't run if we don't have the way to reach in and pull those strings. So you would still need to whitelist Stacksmith itself as a SaaS to be able to get in there and pull those strings. We are considering an on-prem version of Stacksmith as well. This is something that's likely going to get greater attention later this year. We'd love your feedback. One key bit with on-premise is that we would not then use the native cloud capabilities for image building and packaging. So there are some considerations that you'd have to make if you were going to run Stacksmith on-prem. Again, we'd love your feedback there. But do be aware that we can satisfy use cases today where you're required to keep all your IP within a particular cloud or region. The current free trial supports US East only. So talk to us and we can get you on the early access for packaging in other regions.
Thank you, Matt. Kind of related to that, could you just tell everybody who's listening in today a little bit about what our engagement model is, how we sell Stacksmith, and generally what the costs are?
Great question. Feel free to sign up for our free trial. That will create you a Stacksmith account. We do, by the way, have a lot of sample applications. If you don't have your own compiled app or not sure how to create those boot scripts, we have a lot of reference architectures and sample applications available to help you understand the process. Do also, take a look at the quick start tutorials that you'll find on the support page. Once you've gone through that, what we like to do is we like to engage in a white glove app migration with you. So if you have your own app and you'd like to test how you can package and maintain that with Stacksmith, please contact me. Either email customersuccess@bitnami.com, or you can email me direct at mattsmall@bitnami.com, and we're happy to help. We want to make sure that you're successful and that you grok this the first time through, so you can see how this can become a simplified and repeatable process long term. The first one's free. What you'll get out of that white glove app migration engagement is a set of images and the deployment templates to get them running in a cloud. Again, those are not tied to the underlying, to Stacksmith. They are, of course, tied to the underlying cloud platform. But you can take those with you. What we'll want to show you within that 30 days after you package your first application with Stacksmith is the maintenance capabilities. So system package update monitoring, the ability to repackage and maintain that application over time. So that's really like what we like to focus on within that 30-day free trial period. There are new system package updates just about once a week. Lately, it seems like there's been a new CVE just about once a week as well. So you'll get a lot of practice in those 30 days for repackaging and maintaining that app. We'll also show you, of course, how to redeploy, maintain those applications with some immutable standards in the target cloud or container platform.
Great. So if I want to trial Stacksmith, I have to come with my cloud credentials, my AWS or my Azure cloud credentials. Is it possible to still test and evaluate Stacksmith if I don't have those credentials available to me?
If you want to package applications securely within your own account, no. If you would just like to do a limited test of Stacksmith to get a feel for it, we can provide you with a sandbox account that you can use for some basic testing.
Great.
There was one other question there on pricing that I just realized I hadn't addressed. Stacksmith is priced by the application, so it doesn't matter how many times you repackage or maintain that application. We simply price by the application, and it starts at $15,000 per year, and that's up to 10 applications, and we scale by the application thereafter.